What's up, folks? It's Javier on Chats and Grinds. Where is the pollution? Humans are creating all this pollution, yet when you go out, you still see a nice blue sky. Maybe every once in a while you deal with a little bit of dust in your house, but it's not that big of a deal, is it? So, I want to talk to you guys a little bit about my experience with pollution because I feel for the most people, pollution isn't that big of a deal. They feel it doesn't impact them in some tangible way. I'm from Florida, from a small town a little bit north of Tampa. It's called Dade City. Shout out to Dade City. I think we have less than 10,000 people there, and I'm not even from downtown Dade City. I'm from 4 miles down next to the swamp. So where I grew up, there were probably more alligators out there than people. We had 3 acres, and it was very unkept. It was just woods. And I remember when I get home from school, I put my bag down, walk around the woods, and out there I could see a lot of squirrels, snakes, some possums, some wild hogs. The neighbors even had some large flock of turkeys, and they would come up to the fence, and I would get to hang out with them for a little bit. So my preteen years and my teen years were very magical in that sense. Later, I came back to Florida and I lived in Tampa. And even if you go down to downtown Tampa, you can look up at the sky every day and you're gonna see a bright, beautiful blue sky. I also lived in Fort Lauderdale for a while, and I feel that side of Florida, the East Coast Florida, has better weather even than the Gulf side of Florida. So I remember in college, I would skateboard to the beach. I'd go to Deerfield Beach. It would take me about 10 minutes. And sometimes I'd go down and hang out with them down in Oakland Park, and we would skate down to all the way down to Sunrise. And we could see every day was beautiful, beautiful sky, nice, crisp, white clouds year round. There'd be some windsurfers out there. So for somebody that's living in Fort Lauderdale, or somebody that's really living on the West Hemisphere, I feel there's probably very few areas that experience heavy pollution on that side of the world. I think it would be very hard to imagine anything different than that. It's easy to look around and say to yourself, where's the pollution? What are people talking about? I don't see any pollution. So at the end of 2012, I graduate college and I moved to Shijiazhuang. I'll say it for you guys again. Shijiazhuang. I know that's a tough one. Now, if you arrive in China, in Beijing, you can take the high-speed rail down to Shijiazhuang. It takes about an hour. And I feel most of you guys have not heard of Shijiazhuang, right? I doubt it. Shijiazhuang is considered a medium-sized city in China. I remember the first time I arrived in China, I was speaking to a Chinese man. His English was really, really good. And he was from Shijiazhuang, and he referred to Shijiazhuang as a village. And coincidentally, if you look at the syllables, the third syllable of Shijiazhuang, Zhuang, actually means village. But I think you'd be surprised to know that Shijiazhuang has 10 million people. So for comparison, New York City has 8 million people. So Shijiazhuang, or the Shiz, like we used to call it, has a kind of a heavy steel manufacturing industry right in the center. And some of those factories were maybe 2 or 3 blocks from where I lived. So that created a situation where there was bizarre pollution. It's bizarre to an extent that I feel to really conceive of it, you have to imagine as if you are traveling to another planet. If you don't live it, if you don't go there and you see it, I think it's unimaginable. I believe even if you were to go there today, though, I think you may not be able to experience it because I think there's been some regulations and some change. So the way that it was in 2012, 2013 is probably not the same as it is today. But I have some pictures I can show you guys. I have this picture where I'm at a memorial park and I'm in front of this tank, and in front of this tank there's actually a huge building, but the pollution is so thick that you really can't see the actual building. And mind you that I've edited this photo and added a little bit more contrast to be able to bring that building out. There were times in Shijiazhuang where you wouldn't be able to see the blueness of the sky for months at a time. I remember on some very, very special days, after a blizzard or a storm or snow, the next 2 or 3 days you would get a chance to get some clear skies in, and you would walk outside and look at the blueness of the sky, and it would cause you awe. It felt so, it made you so immensely happy to be able to see the sky. It's inconceivable to have that feeling unless you felt that feeling. You don't even realize how much you need to see that blueness, how much you yearn for that blueness, unless you've been living in that kind of condition for months at a time, and you get to see the big blue, as I used to call it at that time. But I'll let you guys know one more story to really flesh it out for you, to really see if I can get you guys in Shijiazhuang, at least mentally. It was about 2 or 3 in the morning and I'm leaving the club. So I grab a taxi home, and to get home there was this very large intersection. It's about four lanes, crossing 4 lanes, and then there's a overhead pass right on top. So really big intersection, right? So the taxi driver, he pulls up to the intersection, and I'm not kidding you. You can't see the stoplights. So you may say, oh, well, maybe the stoplights weren't working. But that's not the case, because once you got to the middle of the intersection, you could see the stoplight. It was because the pollution was so thick that you actually couldn't see those stoplights. Now, I've never felt like crossing an intersection was so dangerous until this point where I realized that it's as if you're putting on a blindfold and crossing the intersection. Now, I'm sure that the driver had dealt with this many times before. I'm even sure that drivers in Shijiazhuang probably had already developed a culture to deal with this kind of condition. And the reason I say that is because the driver rolled down his window and he started to creep up slowly to the intersection, and then he was blasting his horn as he went by to alert anybody, hey, I'm crossing. So I know for myself it would be inconceivable for me to picture something like that just a year prior to me arriving in Shijiazhuang. So if you live in Florida, or you live in Colorado, or you live in some places in Latin America, some places in Europe, I know that it would be inconceivable for you to understand what that kind of pollution is like, or how you could even live on the same planet, right? It seems so bizarre. It seems like something that you would see on Venus or something, right? And before the virus, when I would come back to the West, a lot of people would ask me, hey, why do Asian people always wear their masks? And they would say this in some kind of expression of disgust and a little bit of entitlement as well, like, wow, their country is so polluted and ours isn't. But I feel that as humans, we have to realize that this is not a Chinese problem. This is not Asia problem, because the reason that these countries have these issues is because of the consumerism that we create in our countries. So these people, they're creating these products in the factories that we consume. So it's basically like we're reaping the benefit and we're exporting that pollution to them. So I don't believe that uh, that we should think about this in some kind of way as this is only their problem. Rather, I feel that we're all part of this. We're all creating this. So we should all be taking some kind of accountability for these issues. And that's where I'm gonna leave it at for today, guys. Um, I hope you got some knowledge out of this one, and I hope that you are looking at some clear blue skies today. And I'll catch you on the next one. Subscribe, give me a like, let me know in the comments, have you experienced something like this? Catch y'all later. Peace.